Bikini Bottom always gets a little strange around Halloween. Jellyfish light up in eerie colors, the Krusty Krab serves squid ink shakes, and Squidward's usual grumpiness somehow feels even more ominous. But this year, something was off. Everyone could feel it. The ocean currents chilled a little deeper, and even plankton closed early. It wasn't just the decorations. There was something truly spooky brewing beneath the sea. SpongeBob SquarePants was unusually excited this Halloween. Normally, he would be bouncing off the walls, prepping goofy costumes, and planning silly pranks with Patrick. But this time, his smile seemed strained. His eyes lingered a little too long on shadows, and his laugh a touch too sharp. No one really noticed at first. It was SpongeBob after all. Even when he started muttering to himself in the candy aisle at Bargain Mart, people just chalked it up to pre-Halloween jitters. What the residents of Bikini Bottom didn't know was that this Halloween, something ancient and dark had awakened. Something that had been sleeping beneath the sea, buried in the crust of the ocean floor. And when SpongeBob found a strange, glimmering object near Goo Lagoon just days before Halloween, a pulsating black orb that whispered his name, it set off a chain of events no one could have predicted. This isn't the story of the Halloween you remember. This is the Halloween where SpongeBob SquarePants turned evil. It's Halloween night in Bikini Bottom, and a thick purple fog drifts lazily through the streets. Glowing jellyfish float through the current, casting eerie patterns on the coral walls. Sea cucumbers in monster masks waddle past skeleton-themed kelp displays. The usual festive joy hangs in the water, but so does something heavier, a strange tension, like the ocean itself is holding its breath. SpongeBob's Pineapple House is unusually quiet. No Halloween playlist blasting from the windows. No wild laughter echoing through the yard. Inside, SpongeBob stands still in front of his mirror, dressed in an elaborate sea vampire costume. His cape glistens like oil, and his fangs shine unnaturally white. He tilts his head, studying himself, not admiring, but inspecting, like a predator testing a disguise. Gary lets out a low, uncertain meow. SpongeBob doesn't respond right away. Then without turning, he says softly, "Don't worry, Gary. It's only for one night." His voice is calm but distant, like it's not entirely his. The transformation began earlier that afternoon. SpongeBob had wandered to a quiet part of Goo Lagoon, guided by a whispering voice only he could hear. Buried beneath the sand was a small glowing orb, black as midnight, swirling with purple mist. When he touched it, the world flickered. His pupils dilated. For a split second, everything around him felt different, darker. The orb vanished into his hand, and something new woke up inside him. Back at the Krusty Krab, Mr. Krabs was ready for his biggest night of the year. The decorations were cheesy, the food was overpriced, and he had a bucket for every coin. This is our moneymaker, SpongeBob, but no stunts, no spooks, just good, clean Halloween service, you hear? "Yes, Mr. Krabs," SpongeBob said with a stiff smile. He moved slower than usual, eyes darting to the shadows, fingers occasionally twitching like they were listening to something the rest of him couldn't hear. The night began normally. Kids came in for Krabby Candy burgers, and Squidward rolled his eyes at every costume. But then, odd things happened. The ketchup started oozing on its own. The fryers flickered like strobe lights. One customer swore the jack-o'-lantern on the counter whispered her name. And behind it all, SpongeBob stood perfectly still, smiling too wide, eyes glowing faintly red. The show had begun. At first, the transformation looked like just another one of SpongeBob's Halloween obsessions. He'd always loved the spooky season, dressing up, scaring Patrick, covering his pineapple in glowing jellyfish lights. But this time, it was different, subtler, more unsettling. The change didn't come all at once. It crept in, like a fog slipping through the cracks of his usually sunny mind. After finding the strange black orb at Goo Lagoon, SpongeBob started having strange dreams. He'd jolt awake in the middle of the night with memories that didn't feel like his. Memories of swimming alone in deep trenches, of voices calling out from dark caves, of being watched by something ancient. And when he woke up, he felt stronger, like he wasn't afraid of anything anymore, like he didn't need to be. The orb had fused with him somehow. It wasn't just an object now, it was part of him. And it whispered all the time. Whispered that people laughed at him, not with him. That he was a joke. That deep down, even his friends pitied him. The whispers fed his insecurities and amplified them, twisting them into something bitter and dark. At the Krusty Krab, the shift was clear. SpongeBob's laugh turned sharp, cutting. When a customer spilled a drink, he didn't rush to help. He stood there, watching with a blank face as the soda fizzed across the floor. The fry cook who once sang love songs to pickles now moved in silence. eyes flicking toward every customer like a predator scanning prey. Even Squidward, always annoyed by SpongeBob's energy, began to feel uneasy. "You're creeping me out, SquarePants," he muttered, but SpongeBob didn't crack a joke back. He just stared, unblinking. Mr. Krabs chalked it up to Halloween stress, until he found every single dollar in the register arranged into a perfect pyramid with the note, "We all pay the price eventually." At home, SpongeBob spent hours in front of the mirror practicing a new smile. Not his usual one, the big goofy grin everyone knew, but a sinister smirk, tight and twisted. He whispered to himself about becoming more than a sponge, about peeling away the happy mask. Patrick noticed it too. "You're not really you, buddy," he said during one of their candy runs. "You're acting like someone mean." SpongeBob didn't answer. He just placed a hand on Patrick's shoulder, leaned in close, and said, "Maybe I've been pretending to be nice this whole time." And somewhere deep in the sea, the orb pulsed brighter. Halloween had always been SpongeBob's favorite holiday, full of lighthearted tricks and goofy scares. But this time, his tricks weren't just different, they were dangerous. The morning after his transformation deepened, SpongeBob arrived early at the Krusty Krab. Too early, Squidward found him crouched in the corner behind the grill, whispering something over and over. When asked what he was doing, SpongeBob looked up slowly and said, "I'm warming up the shadows." Later, when customers began to arrive, the restaurant felt off. The walls seemed closer together, the lighting darker than usual, even with all the fluorescent bulbs on. The music on the jukebox slowed to a crawl. One customer complained her Krabby Patty had teeth marks in it before she even took a bite. Another bit into hers and found a tiny eyeball, gelatinous and blinking. It vanished seconds later, but she screamed and ran out all the same. SpongeBob laughed, not his usual high-pitched giggle, but a low, choked chuckle that seemed to rumble from deep within. He began playing pranks, but not the silly ones he and Patrick used to pull. These were cruel, intentional, targeted. He filled Squidward's locker with snails, real ones, hundreds of them, all hissing and crawling. He replaced Mr. Krabs' prized secret recipe with a scroll written in some ancient language that pulsed with dark energy when touched. Mr. Krabs burned it immediately, but it left his claws stained black for hours. One night, SpongeBob invited Patrick over for a Halloween movie night. Patrick was excited. He brought snacks and glow-in-the-dark socks. But when the movie started, it wasn't a film. It was surveillance footage of Patrick sleeping, eating, walking around his rock. "How'd you get this?" Patrick asked, voice shaking. SpongeBob just smiled and said, "You always leave your window open." Sandy received a delivery, a package with no return address. Inside was a helmet that looked exactly like hers, but it was cracked down the middle. Taped to it was a photo of SpongeBob standing in the middle of her tree dome, holding a wrench. She checked her security logs. No sign of him, but the soil in her garden was disturbed. Even Plankton, the town's resident villain, wasn't immune. His chum bucket lights flickered for days. When he finally checked the storage room, he found a Krabby Patty sitting on a pedestal, untouched. Written in grease on the wall behind it, "It's never been about the recipe." Word spread fast. People avoided SpongeBob. The once beloved sponge became the town's Halloween nightmare. Yet SpongeBob never stopped smiling, and the orb in his house glowed brighter than ever. By Halloween night, Bikini Bottom was unrecognizable. The once busy streets were empty, save for the drifting fog and the occasional terrified guppy rushing home. Jack-o'-lanterns were smashed, decorations had fallen over, the usual chorus of laughter and excited trick-or-treaters had been replaced with a tense, ghostly silence. Everyone knew who was behind it, but no one dared to say his name. SpongeBob had become something else entirely. He moved through the town like a shadow, appearing where no one expected him. One minute he'd be seen standing silently outside the bargain mart. The next, he was at the Krusty Krab's rooftop watching, observing, smiling. The orb's influence had overtaken him, wrapping around his personality like kelp in a storm drain. Patrick, usually clueless, had grown deeply afraid. He locked himself inside his rock, stacking candy bags and pizza boxes in front of the entrance like a fortress. When someone knocked gently on the lid 3 times and whispered, "Best friends forever." Even in the dark, Patrick didn't open it. He just cried softly. Squidward tried to ignore it. He always did. But after hearing SpongeBob laugh through his walls in the middle of the night and finding his paintings all redrawn to feature SpongeBob with hollow eyes, he finally packed a bag and fled to his cousin's house in Shell City. He didn't even leave a note. At the tree dome, Sandy activated her emergency security system. She'd seen enough. Between the sabotaged oxygen tank and the weird, warped files in her laptop labeled Experiment 001, the sponge, she knew she was dealing with something paranormal. She scanned every frequency she could, trying to reach someone, anyone, but all she got was static and SpongeBob's voice whispering her name through her headset. Even Mr. Krabs was shaken. His vault, usually airtight, had been opened from the inside. The only thing left inside was a single coin, melted and bent into the shape of a jellyfish. The words, "Price paid," were carved into the wall beside it. Citizens began fleeing. Jellyfish Fields was empty. The Goo Lagoon boardwalk abandoned. Schools shut down early. Even the police refused to patrol near SpongeBob's house. A rumor started that if you looked into his windows after midnight, you could see something staring back at you, something with too many eyes. And through it all, SpongeBob walked calmly through the town, cape dragging behind him, the orb now floating beside him like a pet. He didn't speak often anymore, but when he did, it was to remind people, this is the real Bikini Bottom. You just didn't want to see it before. Halloween night reached its peak and Bikini Bottom stood on the edge of collapse. Lights flickered across the sea city as the orb's influence spread like a current. Coral cracked, streetlights glowed an eerie purple, fish stayed hidden in their homes, praying for morning. But SpongeBob wasn't hiding. He stood proudly in the center of Jellyfish Fields, surrounded by floating debris and glowing jellyfish that pulsed in rhythm with the orb. It was Patrick who made the first move. Wrapped in a blanket and clutching a flashlight like a sword, he waddled toward the fields, shaking but determined. He couldn't let his best friend disappear. Not like this. "SpongeBob," he shouted, voice cracking. "Come back, dude. This isn't you." SpongeBob turned slowly, eyes gleaming red, expression unreadable. "I am more me than I've ever been," he said. "You don't understand, Patrick. The orb showed me everything. How I've been wasting my life, flipping patties, making jellyfish nets, laughing like a fool. That's what made you great," Patrick pleaded. "You made people happy." Behind Patrick, Sandy dropped in from the cliffs, wearing a reinforced suit and carrying a modified acorn blaster. "He's beyond reason now, Patrick," she said, aiming the device at SpongeBob. "We have to knock him out. Maybe then the orb will lose its grip." SpongeBob floated above the ground now, levitating slightly as the orb spun faster beside him. No more games, no more jokes. This town never appreciated me, but now they will remember my name forever. A massive pulse of energy shot from the orb, knocking Sandy back into a rock wall. Patrick dove over her just in time to avoid the blast. "SpongeBob, stop!" he shouted. "You're scaring everyone." "I know," SpongeBob said with a calm, cruel smile. "Isn't it beautiful?" But then something happened. Gary, unnoticed until now, slithered into the field. His tiny meow cut through the chaos like a bell. SpongeBob paused. The glow in his eyes flickered. Gary meowed again, this time sad. He slowly approached SpongeBob, rubbing against his leg. "Gary," SpongeBob whispered, his voice cracked. The orb pulsed erratically. Patrick saw the moment and ran toward him. "You're not a monster, SpongeBob, you're our friend." The orb flared in resistance, wrapping tendrils around SpongeBob's head, but he grabbed it. "No, I make the jokes," he growled. With one final surge of effort, SpongeBob crushed the orb between his hands. It shrieked, yes, actually screamed, before exploding into a cloud of dark mist. Silence fell. SpongeBob collapsed to the ground, his costume torn, eyes wide with confusion. "What happened?" he asked weakly. "You came back," Patrick said, hugging him tightly. "That's what happened." The dust settled over Jellyfish Fields as the dark mist from the shattered orb slowly faded into the ocean currents. The skies above Bikini Bottom lightened slightly, and the fog that had lingered all week began to lift. SpongeBob sat on the ground, dazed, his cape torn, his eyes back to their usual soft blue. He looked around at his friends, Patrick, Sandy, and even Gary, and blinked as if waking from a nightmare. "I'm so sorry," he whispered. "I didn't mean to scare anyone. I didn't mean to change." Sandy helped him to his feet. "It wasn't you, SpongeBob. That thing, whatever it was, it fed off your emotions, twisted them. You're still you. A little shaken up, but you." Patrick added, "Yeah, and besides, if you ever go evil again, just give us a heads up first. I almost peed in my shell." They all laughed, weak but genuine. It felt good, real. And for the first time in days, SpongeBob smiled, not the eerie, forced grin from before, but his true goofy smile that crinkled his cheeks and made everyone feel safe again. As they walked back toward town, the streets slowly came alive again. Fish peeked from windows, cautiously stepped outside, and looked at SpongeBob with a mix of fear and relief. He raised a hand. "Happy Halloween, everyone. Sorry for the scare." Some fish waved back, others just nodded. It would take time, but Bikini Bottom forgives. Back at the Pineapple House, SpongeBob tucked Gary in and whispered, "Thanks, buddy. You really saved me." And as the screen began to fade to black, SpongeBob looked into the camera with a wink and said, "Moral of the story, don't mess with mysterious glowing orbs, especially on Halloween." So what if SpongeBob turned evil in the Halloween episode? It would be spooky, it would be intense, but most of all, it would still be SpongeBob. Even in the darkest version of Bikini Bottom, friendship, loyalty, and jellyfish always find a way to bring the light back. This twisted tale shows us that even the most cheerful sponge can have a shadow, but with the right people around, he'll never stay lost for long. And hey, next Halloween, maybe skip the haunted artifacts. If you enjoyed this expanded look at what if SpongeBob turned evil in the Halloween episode, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more what if scenarios. Let us know what other SpongeBob questions you'd like us to explore next.